number one issue that traders struggle with in terms of consistency and lack of discipline in their allocation plan and such is that they overtrade. That's typically the number one issue. And I'll tell you why it happens with brand new people. You see, my ad on Facebook, right? And you go, "Oh, this looks good." And in this ad, we talk about alerts. And we talk about success and the challenge and all this wonderful things and the market weather and trade with me now, trade with me now. And it sounds so awesome. So I go ahead and I buy this thing for $47 and I start getting these posts and I don't understand what he's saying. Some people do, some people don't. So some of them that do understand trading immediately start to trade and they trade the alert. If they don't understand the alert, then they just buy straight up calls if it's a long, or they buy straight up puts if it's a short. But even if they take the trade as it is, they have no sense of a true allocation plan. And so rather than a pilot position, which is what I teach eventually once they get through the materials, a small amount that you can dip your toe in the water before things go right or wrong, they stick on a frickin' trade because they go, "Well, Michael knows what he's doing. Let's just trade this sucker." And they overtrade. And that's not good. Because overtrading does a lot of bad things and it leads you to the next number two. Now, overtrading doesn't mean, thousands of dollars or a huge amount of your allocation. When I say overtrade, what I'm referring to is any amount, not all in, any amount on an initial trade that is over a pilot or small allocation that you can live with losing fairly repeatedly often. That's what overtrading is. And on specific trades like a butterfly where the allo is even smaller, if you trade your normal pilot amount when you should be trading half of it, these are specific things that we teach. That's overtrading. And here's what happens when you overtrade. Well, when you overtrade, if you do that, and you have a loss when you overtrade, that means that the next setup or the next few setups, guess what you end up doing? You're timid. And you're afraid. So you undertrade. Because you lack confidence. You can't trade with confidence when you have big losses. And you can't have big losses unless you overtrade. So overtrading has the initial consequence of losing money, which is bad. The worst part is overtrading, because that's just one loss. Doesn't matter. It's one amount of money. But what that ends up doing is that changes your strategy, if you even had one. So now you undertrade and you trade with fear. And so now that you've undertraded, guess what happens? You now lose the ability to capitalize fully, right, on setups that work. Because when the setup works, don't you want to be like full in? Don't you want to be in it? Sorry about the handwriting. So when you undertrade, I'm doing this with a mouse. So those of you that are new and aren't used to my stuff, you know. Sorry, Jimmy. So when you trade with fear because of a recent overtrade loss, you start to undertrade. You put on less because you're afraid. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I put out something that says 340. You just lost 680. And you're like, I was, my normal allo is whatever. Maybe I'll skip this one. Maybe I'll just put on a little, whatever, smaller one. Maybe I won't get 2, I'll just get 1. My allo is 3, and maybe I'll just get 1. So when that happens, and now that you're under trading, you have lost the ability to fully capitalize on the setups that do work. And when that happens, you have completely screwed your equity curve. So let me move on to number 3. My handwriting is usually better, but my hand I've been working a lot today, so my hand is a little frozen. The third thing that people struggle with, and we're going to come back to all this other stuff, is they do not add to trades. So they don't add. Like we did with ENPH. And the reason why you don't add to the trade is because you're afraid to lose. It's fear of loss. So when we have pullbacks that hold, right? Boom, and then it comes down and it holds. Buy signal. Instead of adding to the trade, right? Instead of adding, you just sit it out. You just wait it out. You don't add to winning setups because you're afraid of the loss. So when price pulls back and holds, or it advances towards your target where you could have added more exposure, you don't. And when you don't add to pilot allocations or small allocations, as we just said before, you're not, if you follow these are the 6 rings of doom. Because if you overtrade and then that causes you to undertrade, now that you're undertrading, not only do you undertrade, but you're not even adding to the undertrade. Very rarely, just follow this. If you have a fear of losing, so you undertrade, do you think if this trade starts to work out, you're just going to all of a sudden feel good and start adding to the trade? Ask yourself that. When you have that fear of losing and you're trading scared and you undertrade and all of a sudden the trade starts to work out, you're not going to add to it. What you're going to do is even worse. You're going to bail early. So you undertraded, you didn't add to it, and you got out early. You're going to take small profits on a small trade, and you have lost the ability to fully capitalize on setups that work. Do you understand? So if you're going to follow this pilot allocation plan, but you don't add, and you get out early, you have really screwed yourself. Because not adding, let's get rid of this, not adding to pilot allocations, meaning, the initial trade that was smaller than, you would normally trade maybe on a butterfly, or maybe just a pilot allocation, not adding, it minimizes your equity curve growth. And we have two goals in trading, my friends. One is to be a consistent and successful trader. The other one is an upward equity curve. And if you don't add trades because you're trading scared, because you're under trading, because you over traded, you have minimized equity curve and you have lost the ability to capitalize fully on setups that work. Are you with me so far? You guys with me? It gets better. Yeah. Number 4. This first one really was that you just don't add to trades. Number 4 is that you undertrade, and I discussed it already, so this is fast. You undertrade generally because of a fear of loss. So you undertrade, and on top of it, you don't add. And so when you undertrade with a fear of loss and you don't add to it, you have now become a scared trader. It gets worse. No, I mean, this is basically it. When you undertrade because of a fear of loss and then you don't add, I want you to understand that even if you have a 50-50 win rate, you're losing money. You're going nowhere. And you get frustrated. And then you lose more confidence. And that's number 5. So number 5 is that 1 through 4 has you lose confidence in your ability to trade, in your ability to get this thing, understand it, do it, to be successful. You lose confidence from all of this. And when you lose confidence, you literally become a scared trader. And there's a 6, which is kind of funny, but not really. But I'll do 6 and then we'll recap. 6 is that there are moments in time where you have a successful trade. Yay! And maybe you have 2 successful trades. Yay! And guess what that does? It builds confidence. Yay, that's good too, right? And then what happens? You build confidence, but because you lack the discipline with your allocation and you're Mr. or Ms. Strugglepuss, it goes back to number 1. Exactly. You then overtrade. So maybe you didn't overtrade because you were overconfident. Maybe you just were stupid and just said, I'm going to trade this because Michael says so, or you just walked into it or whatever. Maybe you didn't overtrade because of overconfidence or whatever. Maybe you just overtraded. But this, number 6, this is when you actually have success. When you have success, it's like the Giants won on Sunday. A freaking amazing, shocking, shock the world game. The Giants beat the Titans. The Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. Now, they lost a heartbreaker to the Bengals, which they shouldn't have won. They shouldn't have lost, but they did. Titans have one of the greatest running backs of all time. Derrick Henry is like a giant rock'em sock'em robot. Nobody can stop him. He's just, I've never seen anybody run with that kind of power before. He's amazing. And Tannehill, fantastic since he left Miami. There's no way the Giants expected to win. Giants have a new GM. Giants have a new coach. They have a new trading plan, right? They have a new allocation plan. They have a new everything. New coach, new offensive coordinator. They got a ton of new players. They got one player, I think, that's been there for more than 3 years. And they won. So one of the things the coach said was, you had success today. It was great. Let's enjoy the win, but it's one game. Let's not let success and get overconfident and then lose sight of the next game. It is a one-game season. And I will tell you in trading, it is literally a one-trade season. You trade and have success, and then you forget about it. And you go back to your setups and your allocations. You have a trade that doesn't work. It's a trade that doesn't work. It's a one-trade season, just like a one-game season in the NFL. You cannot carry that shit, good or bad, into the next game. You can't. Quarterbacks have to get the last play out of their head, like an interception, a fumble, and then get back on in a few minutes and forget about it and then go back there with those guys coming after you and throw the ball up in the air again. Wow, does that take some guts and some discipline. So do not let a successful trade or series of trades get you to the overconfident level where you then start to overtrade. Because, and I'm going to go through it here, because if you overtrade that initial allocation or on a fly when it's supposed to be even half, you forget the whole pilot thing. And if you overtrade it, a loss is going to kill your confidence, and then you're going to fall into the timid world again. And then your next move is to go from success to overtrade to loss. Now, you know what? I'll just take it easy. I'll just, I'm going to, and you undertrade. And now you've lost the ability to capitalize on a setup that works. And I'll skip over to number 4. And so while you undertrade and you have that fear of loss and you don't add to the trade, even with a 50-50 win rate, you can't have an upward equity curve. It's minimized. And so you lose confidence. And now you become the scared trader again. Until you either quit or you have success. And if you have success, it could lead you right back to overtrading and not having, a plan. So overtrading is probably the number one. Absolutely the number one reason people fail in trading, without exception. It's not because you don't understand the trade, you missed the setup, I made a mistake. Nobody undertrades because they made a boo-boo in the trade before. Oops, I did puts instead of calls. Next time I'll trade half. No, you won't. You'll just get it right the next time. That's just a mistake. This is why you screw up. Because you overtrade. And then if you overtrade and that turns into a loss, then you're timid. And that leads you to undertrading the next one. And that's not good. And then you don't even add to a trade. And then the question is, do you ever add? So this could be number 1, overtrading. Not adding could be number 2. Because if you don't add to winning setups, that means you have a fear of loss in your trading. and it doesn't allow you to capitalize on equity curve movement, on a win. Your wins, if you don't add, your wins become too small. So not adding, I'll just write this out here, not adding to pilot, and obviously you don't do it all the time, when it's appropriate to add, it minimizes your equity curve, your EQ, since the wins that you have are very small. The wins that you have are very small, and your losses are the same size or sometimes even greater, then a 50-50 win rate sends your equity curve down. And I've already showed you how a 50-50 win rate can make your equity curve go up. And part of that is having a pilot so that you don't overtrade. Part of that is adding to a trade. And the other part is having exit plans to get out of trades. And all of it, really, when you have all of this, you end up lacking the confidence. You are no longer a competent, consistent, successful trader. When you lack, confidence, you lack confidence and you're not confident, you become a scared trader. And a scared trader cannot make money because they undertrade. They undertrade and they don't add to a trade that's working. And you can't go anywhere with that. So the answer to this conundrum of struggles, these 6 rings of struggle, the answer to this is clearly to have, an allocation plan that you can stick to. So you have to know what's your pilot, what's your burn level, what's that number that you can live with on every single trade, and then you just have to do that and stay underneath that every single trade. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video from Trade With Me Now. Make sure to go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our channel so you make sure that you catch our next video right when it's released. Also, if you have a question or comment, please leave that in the comment section below. And of course, if you want to learn more about Trade With Me Now or join our community of profitable traders, go to tradewithmenow.com. There's also a link in the description below.